And it's Friday morning and it's 10 o'clock. And welcome to halftime highlights or halftime headlines. My bad. This is our opportunity to come and just talk about all the things that have gone down throughout the week, all the things that concern what we talk about, what we do, HBCU band culture, music education, all the things. And we can have long discussions without specific interruptions. So don't forget that the super chats are open if you want to drop a super chat for the comments or anything like that. Also, if you want to get a band review, you can also drop a super chat as well. But just you got to let me know what the band review is. You can't just be like, review this, but you don't tell me what it is. So with all that being said, man, let's go ahead and jump into our first headline.
Well, still no new answers from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division regarding a pair of shootings on the campus of South Carolina State University during homecoming activities on Saturday night. One of those shootings claiming the life of 19-year-old Julia Butler.
Today, students returned to class for the first time since those shootings. Our Derek Rush is on campus today with more details on the second shooting Saturday night and safety concerns that are still there. He spoke with students.
Well, everyone that I spoke with today told me that the same thing is on the top of their mind, and that is their safety. Even though classes have returned and midterms have been delayed, they said that going to class just has not been the same.
We wish that they would be able to find the shooter.
Amina Wade was one of the students who organized a prayer walk following the weekend shooting at South Carolina State's homecoming. But even with prayer, students say they can't help but worry for their safety.
Like, what are y'all going to do about the open areas that's on campus? Like, people can still come through. I have to, like, walk day in and day out on where the crime scene that it happened at. So it, like, triggers me more.
All over campus, the same question.
How are you going to make the students feel safe?
What is the security really doing behind the scenes?
You know, our parents and friends back home from far and near shouldn't have to be worried. But yeah, we'll be planning moving forward.
Campus police seen patrolling near Poplar Hall, the same area where the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division says a man was shot at homecoming that night. Beyond that, no new information from the university or from SLED on any suspects.
Not really surprised because a lot of people are scared to speak up. Especially in our community.
As students struggle to chart their way back to a new normal and focus on learning.
All right. So a lot to unpack in that. First things first, the one thing I have to understand is that there was actually a young lady that did lose her life. So I definitely want to say rest in peace to her. But there's a bigger thing, right? So why is it that specifically during the homecoming time, this is when this is happening the most? You know, every year now, it seems that when we get to these homecomings, you know, there's always one or two or a major fight or something that breaks out. And what I'm to understand is a lot of times those are not even students that are usually, those are not even people, the shooters are not usually people who are students. So my question is, and obviously they have major concerns too. What are these students supposed to do on these campuses when these things are happening? Especially when we're talking about open campuses, situations where people can just walk on, they can just do whatever they want to do, specifically during homecoming. You try to, and I've seen it happen where people try to limit and be very mindful of who comes on campus. You know, there are some schools where they have gone to ticket purchasing and so on and so forth. But then I've seen situations where they put gates up and things of that nature, and they knock down the gates and things are just, how do we control this? Because to be very honest, I don't understand how I send a child to school. Now, me being a parent, I'm a parent of 4 children. And I send my child to school to go and get shot or to be shot at in a place of higher learning when they're supposed to be receiving an education. I don't understand how that makes a parent or a student feel comfortable. When during homecoming time, let's really talk about this homecoming thing. When during homecoming time, that is a time for celebration. That is a time for rejuvenation, or unless you're in the band. If you're in the band, it's tight. You ain't getting none of that until it's all over. But that's supposed to be a time for people to come back and just have a good time and have great thoughts about what it was like to be on that specific campus. And now all of a sudden, you now have to deal with this particular situation where you now have to feel unsafe on the campus that you spent 4 or 5, some people 6 or 7 years on, feeling safe, feeling like it's a place of a community. And so now, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, A&T just had their homecoming, so shout out to A&T. But this is homecoming season. What measures are being put in place to ensure that the people who are coming on these campuses, the people who are participating in these events, are not only current or prior students, but also to ensure the safety? Are there gates being put up? Are there wands being checked? And I know you probably don't want to say this. I know this is probably insane, but maybe a metal detector, something. No child deserves to lose their life when they're trying to get an education. Now, there was another news report. I'm looking at it right here. It says that a 18-year-old was arrested in connection with the shootings, but he's been released on custody. It said he was released on an $87,000 bond. He was arrested and charged with pointing and presenting a firearm at a person and carrying a weapon on school property. Now, it doesn't say whether this young man is a student or not. This young man, and it doesn't say it. It says, according to arrest warrants released by South Carolina, the young man had a loaded Glock handgun in his vehicle parked on the South Carolina State campus on Saturday after seeing a fight between two groups. You know what? Before I even get into this part of the conversation going forward, I just don't understand the fights in an area, in a community, or a place where you're supposed to be building community and just having a good time. I don't really get that. You know, as during my days, and yes, I did have these days, during my days as a club promoter, one of the things that I could never understand, even in the years when I just used to be a regular club patron, I could never understand how you could fight in the club. As much, and I gotta say it, I'm gonna put it out here live, because I'm gonna keep it real. As much booty was around for you to be able to touch on, have a great time, dance on, spit game to, try to get numbers, all of these different things, and you choose to fight. I don't know what is so aggressive or what makes you so angry at somebody in a place where you're supposed to be entertained and having fun, to the point that you need to start fighting someone. There's nothing, in my opinion, there is nothing that is that important that you need to throw hands at a homecoming. Especially now, because I don't know, because I know last year, you know, the young ladies were wearing the little high skirt daddies with the booty cheeks out. I don't know if that's a thing now. But especially when, if you an old head, you can, if you ain't married, you can come back and try to holler at your old fling. If you a Greek, you can hang with your Greek partners. If you in a band, you hang with your band partners. There's food everywhere. What do you need to be fighting for? I just don't understand this concept. And one of the things that I know people used to talk to me about, and I used to have conversations about when I was in undergrad, was I don't understand how you bring hood culture to college. I don't get that either. Leave the hood in the hood. But again, based on this story, the two people or the two groups fighting probably could could have not even been students. So that's very possible. So it says, after seeing a fight between two groups, the young man allegedly grabbed the gun from his vehicle and shot twice toward an unidentified male wearing a black and red hoodie. You know, it's interesting to me in the fact that we don't throw hands no more. Why don't we throw hands? No? Why? What is so wrong with just saying, you know what? I'm going to throw hands and I'm going to be done with it. What's so wrong with that? You throw hands, you lose, you done. You throw hands, you win, you done. We can't just throw hands no more. Now the immediate response. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division said there were two unrelated shootings that same. Two unrelated shootings? So not only the shooting in which we're talking about now, but there were also two other shootings that same night during home. Wow. What are we doing? What are we doing? As growing up and watching Friday, and shout out and rest in peace, my bad, to Johnny Witherspoon. But that saying will always live with me. Put your dukes up. Now you a man. You live to fight another day. And now you have two shootings that same night. So ultimately, unless my math is wrong, 3 shootings the same night as a homecoming weekend. Says one shooting at Poplar Hall critically injured a man who didn't attend the university. And I get it, and let me be very clear. I understand the idea of people who are not from the campus enjoying the campus or enjoying the homecoming life, in the sense that I went to another university. I know what my homecoming experience is like. I want to experience someone else's homecoming experience. But then there are those who are, I ain't never been to college. I'm in the hood. Hey, they partying over there? I'm going. That's a completely different situation. Those two variables, in my opinion, aren't the same. Because if I'm from another university and I go to a university campus, there's a level of respect there that I have. I understand that the culture from my university transcends or travels to the new university. And I am not going there with the idea or the intent to disrespect. I'm going there with the idea or the intent to enjoy. But then when you got somebody who from across the street, they don't have no connection with nobody. So for them, their mindset is, hey, if something go down, we not with them. I don't care who you are. I don't have no respect. And I think that's the thing that we got to find out a way to control. The other shooting across campus at Eugene Suites killed 19-year-old Jalea Butler of Saluda, who was visiting for homecoming festivities. Parents and students who were on campus raised questions and concerns about the investigation and their safety. It was shocking, and I'm sure it's shocking to all parents. Jonadarian McDaniel, a student who lives on campus, said the incident was particularly unsettling. We actually stay here. Said that was kind of crazy for us. I think that is what makes it even worse. We're talking about a community of people, a community of students who are living on a campus that is now turned into a war zone. How do you go to class the next day? How do you feel comfortable coming out of your dorm? How do you feel comfortable staying in a dorm? Because when I was growing up, I remember this one saying that followed a lot. A bullet ain't got no name on it. So how do you feel comfortable feeling safe in your dorm when you have 3 shootings in one night? I really believe that at some point we really got to start looking into how we control what happens on our campuses, specifically during homecoming. One thing that's interesting to me is that you got to tell people to be safe during homecoming. The conversation should be have fun. All right, man, I'm going to homecoming. All right, man, have fun. Have fun for me. Now it's, all right, man, be safe out there, bro. I don't know. Y'all tell me. All right. Let's get to the next topic. Remember, Super Chats are open, so you are more than welcome to go ahead and hit a Super Chat. Remember, you can also Super Chat if you want me to review a band. We got to talk about the top thing, the thing that was going super crazy in the band space. Everybody was talking about it, and everybody has their own think pieces on it, and we're going to have a discussion about it today. We already know that Donovan Wells from Bethune-Cookman has already put his thoughts out there. He's written a well-worded letter stating his thoughts about the band of the year. And I want to read it, but this is also, we're also going to take an opportunity to deep dive into everything that surrounds this. So here we go. It says, I pray all is well with each of you. I want to take this opportunity to share the position of the Marching Wildcats regarding the Band of the Year competition and ranking. As director of bands, I have never been a supporter of this competition concept. I believe there are better, more meaningful ways to showcase and celebrate the HBCU marching band art form without placing us in direct competition against one another. Marching band is not a sport. It is an academic entity and serves as an ensemble credit for instrumental music education majors. Other organizations with similar events highlight our talents while fostering an atmosphere of mutual respect. These organizations include the band directors in the planning process while hosting conference calls to answer questions, exchange ideas, and address concerns. Bands must apply to participate, and if you choose not to, your program will not be included in any promotions or rankings. This level of professionalism is the standard we should expect and demand. Despite my repeated request to exclude the Marching Wildcats since the event's inception, my requests have been ignored. Instead, it feels as though we are being forced into participation. I cannot, in good conscience, and as an educator, accept this rule of thought for the young women and men I represent in this program. Let me be extremely clear. I hold no ill will toward the band directors or bands who choose to participate or the event itself. Every program faces different circumstances, and I wish my colleagues nothing but success. I remain a fan of all HBCU bands because we share a unique and powerful art form that cannot be duplicated. We must also demand respect and protect our HBCU band culture. If we fail to do so, we risk losing ownership of what makes us who we are. These views are mine alone, grounded in my 42 years as a music educator and band director. They do not reflect the positions of any HBCU band director. Thank you for your time, and may God bless you all in a mighty way. So, I obviously talked about this on LBR. Again, a lot of people were discussing this in many group chats. Again, I want to be able to have this conversation right here. First of all, was Donovan Wells right? Was he right? Was he right, one, in releasing the letter? There are some schools of thought who say no. There are some schools of thoughts who say he should have not said anything. There are some schools of thought who say that he is wrong in the sense of not participating. I will say this. You have to protect your program. Period. If you feel strongly about something, specifically if you have made acknowledgement to the fact that you don't feel comfortable about something, and you are the leader of said program, it is your responsibility and duty to protect your program, your students, and your brand. Do I think Donovan Wells was wrong for letting this letter out? No. That is his way of protecting the brand. I also realized that at some point after Dr. Little's letter, there was going to be another letter. And let me also say this. I am not going to be surprised if someone else has another letter that follows. And this isn't specific to Band of the Year, because we're going to talk about Band of the Year in a second. This is specific to the situation within itself. If you are a leader, you got to protect your brand. Period. Now, with that being said, let's start breaking this thing down. He says he has never been a supporter of this competition concept. It's to my understanding, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, whether you're watching this on playback or if you're watching this live right now, throw it in the comment section. It is to my understanding that they have never participated in the Band of the Year, in the sense that they never submitted a video. They've never came out openly and said that they were in support of it, or so on and so forth. When they receive the rankings, I don't think they've ever put it out or even acknowledged it in any of their halftime shows. Because let's be very clear. Most people who receive higher rankings in other positions and spaces usually will say, we were number blah, 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 blah in this particular ranking. I don't ever remember them stating that. There is a school of thought, though, that the difference between the Jackson situation and the Bethune situation is a lot of people are saying, well, because Jackson lost the first time that they participated, then that's why they didn't want to participate later on throughout the years. Whereas Bethune never participated. So Donovan Wells has a leg to stand on. I argue this point. What if, here's the big what if Jackson just wanted to try it out? What if Dr. Little's mindset was, all right, this is something new. This is an interesting concept. Let's try it out and see how it goes. And we will make our decisions on how we want to move forward afterward. And then they tried it out. And it wasn't that they won or lost. It was more or less they may have felt a way about certain things that took place in the process of. And because it didn't work out that way, they chose not to continue on and participate. Just saying. That could be a possibility. There are multiple schools of thought. I am a let's look at it from all sides kind of person. I am not it's a solid, this is what it is. I'm just not. Now, is it possible because of the fact that they didn't win that they felt that it was a quote unquote bias? Maybe, quite possibly. But there's also a thought process that they may just not have appreciated, some of the things that took place behind the scenes. Because based on this letter, while, Donovan Wells goes on to say later on in this letter that he holds no ill will toward the band directors or the band or the program itself in the band of the year, he also says that he wasn't a supporter of it because he doesn't believe that this is a good way or the best way to be able to highlight HBCU band programs. So maybe, just maybe, Donovan Wells saw the writing on the wall early, and Dr. Little was like, yo, it seems like a pretty decent concept. Let's just give it a shot. That's very likely. He then goes on to say, I believe there are better, more meaningful ways to showcase and celebrate the HBCU band art form without placing us in direct competition against one another. I don't disagree. As long as we make it and keep it a showcase. I think I said this on the LBR, and I really want to expound on it now because we got time today. As long as it's a showcase, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If the idea is to celebrate HBCU bands, if that is legitimately what we're doing, then stop saying we are the better band. Because once you say we are the better band, you are now talking about a field of competition. Specifically, when you start adding these different hits on different band programs, most of the time it's going to be through your announcer. But when you start talking that stuff, you're now entering the field of competition. And to be very honest, I don't know how me directly saying something against another program is me showing camaraderie with another program. I don't even get that concept. If the art form itself is the thing that's supposed to speak, then how do we then justify saying we are celebrating the art form by also vocally tearing each other down through our announcer? That, to me, those two don't even make sense. But again, if we are only speaking on a showcase, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when you say, I am the better band, we are the top band, we are the number one in the nation, whatever that is, whatever way you've put yourself over someone else, you have left the showcase. You have left the showcase space, and you have now entered the field of competition. That's the only thing I honestly disagree with in this particular line. Other than that, yeah, I agree. He goes on, marching band is not a sport. We'll tackle that in a minute. It is an academic entity and serves as an ensemble credit for instrumental music majors. Other organizations with similar events highlight our talents while fostering an atmosphere of mutual respect. I don't know what event that is. And someone please tell me what event that is. Not trying to be funny. I'm really not trying to be funny. I don't know what event that is. I could say it's the National Battle of the Bands. I could say that because, you have your halftime aspects, so on and so forth. But then you have the stands battle, which, in my opinion, I don't think the stands battle is anything wrong with the stands battle. Let me put that out there. But depending on what two groups are playing against each other, that then becomes competition, right? I'll give you a very good example, the best example I can give. And I got to bring it up because it was floating through the spaces for years. The Miles PV situation. The Miles PV situation is a very, very good example in the sense that I think didn't PV play first, and then Miles was playing, but then Miles was playing too long, so then PV came in over on top of them, and the whole crowd went crazy. Honestly, I don't know how that's a field of mutual respect. I do. To me, that went into competition territory. Now, don't get me wrong. It was entertaining. Everybody got excited for it. It passed through all the spaces. Everybody was hype about it. All of that stuff is true. But I don't think that was a quote-unquote mutual respect atmosphere. So again, what the closest I would say is National Battle of the Bands. Because Honda was it. I think if we wanted to really put it in true fashion of what Donovan Wells is speaking here, Honda was probably the closest we can talk about for performances with mutual respect or atmospheres with mutual respect. Because Honda at one time was strictly about the halftime show. Hence the reason why, now that I'm thinking about it, they shut all of the cranking up on each other out of the tunnels. Because they wanted to create an atmosphere of mutual respect. And for all of you who are watching, who are young and have no idea what I'm talking about with Honda, let me sit down for a second. Let me school you. So back in the day when Honda was hot, when bands all felt like they had something to prove, right? Because you got to remember, this was also during a time when the social media spaces and the videographer spaces were still very limited. Very limited. You had, I think it was Marching Sport that was still going on. I think Tape Master was still doing his thing. Like, you still had a couple of people who were still doing it. But for the most part, you didn't get much. So when you finally got these groups and spaces who had never who don't get too many opportunities to be in the space together, and you put them all in the tunnel, oh, it went down. It went down. As a person who witnessed and was in those spaces, who was at the Hondas, you could hear them cranking up in the stands. You could be sitting in the stands and hearing them cranking up in the tunnel. And then when you got selected to go to Honda, you anticipated cranking up in the tunnel until they were like, hey, we shutting this down. Now, again, looking at from the lens of where Donovan Wells is coming from, I can understand now why they shut that down, because they were trying to create a field of mutual respect. That's why I say Honda is probably the closest one. Outside of that, give me something else. Give me somebody else. Give me another one. Because everything else is about going against each other and the field of competition. Like I said, I think the National Battle of the Bands is about the closest. These organizations include the band directors in the planning process while hosting conference calls to answer questions, exchange ideas, and address concerns. That could be true. That can be true. That can be true. Bands must apply to participate, and if you choose not to, your program will not be included in any promotions or rankings. 100% true. 100% true. I can go back to Honda. When the Honda ballot, before the Honda ballot drops, you have the opportunity to opt in or opt out. If you opt out, your band is not included in the voting ranks. Because remember, if you remember how Honda worked, and they kind of changed it up throughout the years, but if you remember how it worked, you had to go and vote for who you wanted to see. And I remember years when I didn't see Southern on there. I remember years when I didn't see Jackson on there. I remember years where I think every year Bethune was on there. I think. But I think years where I didn't see PV on there. It's been a couple years where a lot of people weren't on there. because a lot of them opted out. And you had the availability to do that. Not throwing them on and then saying, well, if you get voted, you don't have to show up. Because here's my position on that thought process. If you get voted, you don't have to show up. It then makes people question the voting process. Like let's put it all out there. If you say, if you get voted, if you become the person with the top votes, but you can opt out, then who then is the next person? So let me put it to you like this. If everybody, and I'm gonna use them because everybody likes Jackson. Well, not everybody likes Jackson, but for the most part, Jackson is the go-to band right now. If 70% of the people voted for Jackson, there's another 30% that voted for multiple other people, or let's just say another 30% voted for Alcorn. Just using them, I'm just throwing them out there. Not saying that's what happened. Y'all don't take it personal. But let's just say another 30% voted for Alcorn. 70% people voted for Jackson. Jackson doesn't end up going. Alcorn ends up going. That 70% is going to be like, yo, what? I don't want to see them. I want to see the people I voted for. Then the question, then it becomes, well, how did they get to Alcorn if 70% voted for Jackson? How do we get to this Alcorn number all of a sudden? That's where people are looking at. So instead, you just don't put them on the ballot in the beginning. Then you don't give people an option. Then you have to only vote and go based on whatever is given to you. But when you see people and you see a name on a ballot, and then as the consumer, you're thinking, well, they're actively participating. And then you also know from a I stand back and watch standpoint that people believe, the viewers believe they have a real shot. And then they end up falling to like 9. People aren't going to believe that. It's not believable. It's just not. It's just not believable. And that's the problem. So if you just exclude them from the ballot from the beginning, you don't run into that problem. Let me continue what he's saying. He says, this level of professionalism is a standard we should expect and demand. That's fair. Despite my repeated requests to exclude the Marching Wildcats since the event's inception, my requests have been ignored. One would assume that if your name keeps ending up on the ballot and you keep asking not to be there. Instead, it feels as though we are being forced into participation. If I say I don't want to be on it and I still end up on it, that sounds like a forced situation to me. I cannot, in good conscience and, as an educator, accept this rule of thought for the young men and women I represent in this band program. You have to be a leader. And in my opinion, he's standing on leadership. That's all. In my opinion, that's literally all it is. He's standing on leadership. He's not trying to disrespect anybody. He's not trying to make anybody feel bad. He's not trying to do anything but stand on leadership. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just finished that paragraph. Let me go to these comments real quick. Throwing your life away over a scuffle. That's talking about the South Carolina State. Both seem like they gave it a fair shot, went through the process, and then made the decision not to participate further. People want to assign every negative reason as to why they would refuse further. Yeah, I think what ends up happening specifically with us, there's always a negative component to decisions that are made. Not every decision that is made always has to have a negative connotation to it. And sometimes we have to be open enough to recognize and take accountability for the idea that a perspective is different. And just because you have a thought or a perspective doesn't negate somebody else's perspective, and that doesn't make it negative, right? I'll give a great example. If I fry chicken, which I do a really good job of frying chicken, by the way, but if I fry chicken, somebody comes and tastes my chicken, and then they say, hey, man, you know, I know you fry chicken, but you might want to put a little salt on it. And I take it personal. Well, that's an issue with me. Because maybe, just maybe, I need to put a little salt in it. I may like it. I may have a personal attachment to it. But if I'm serving it to the masses, and the masses say you may need to put a little salt on it, that's not negative. You have to be open. And I'm not saying people aren't open. I'm just basing this off of this comment. But you have to truly, truly be open to accepting that you don't have all the answers. And anything that comes your way is not always negative. They want it to be more than a showcase. They want to position themselves as an authority, and that's over with. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. For me, if the judges' sheets from each week or month aren't going to the band to improve the fields, it can't be beneficial. So it's to my understanding that all programs receive their scores. Again, and this is from conversations that I've had. It is to my understanding, based on the conversations that I've had, that all bands receive their scores. If they don't receive their scores, they can, I don't know if it's a call, but you can call or email and request to see your scores if you had not received them. That's my understanding. And I'm going to leave it there. It's definitely a competition when the students and directors have mutual understanding and see it as that. I don't think Wells sees any band as a competition because that's just Wells. It's only right that energy from back then created so many lifelong fans. That's true. Only becomes a problem when people take it too far to the point of fanaticism. Yeah, that is a thing. That is definitely a thing. But I think here's the thing. I think we go a little too far when we start talking about being a fan, right? Being a fan is just that. I am a fan of something. And let me get a little bit of, biblical for a second. I really think that we go from being a fan to being an idol. And that's where I think we start to go wrong. When we start idolizing, right? I can be a fan of something, but also be open to realizing that everything that the group that I like doesn't do everything good. But when you start making the group or the thing that you like, and you put that over everything, that even logic escapes you because it's the thing that you like, that's where I think it is a problem. And that's where we start getting into idolization. So, yeah, I think we go too far with our fandom. I really do. Let's continue, though. Let me be extremely clear. I hold no ill will toward the band, directors, or bands who choose to participate or the event itself. Every program faces different circumstances, and I wish my colleagues nothing but success. I think that's great. He wants to be able to make sure that he still supports band programs, and the program itself. Because we share a unique and powerful art form that cannot be duplicated, we must also demand respect and protect our HBCU band culture. If we fail to do so, we risk losing ownership of what makes us who we are. Now, let me bring this up for a second because I heard this and I kept seeing this, and I think we need to talk about it. Whew. Let me see if y'all ready for this one. Should HBCUs be judged? There was a lot of argument in the fact, and I've heard this on many different occasions. Multiple people have texted me, called. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it out there. If he sees this, I saw your call. I didn't get a chance to get to it because I was working. My bad. But hopefully you see this. He knows who he is. I want to know what's wrong with being adjudicated. Okay? So let me break a couple of things down from the things that people have talked to me about and the things that I've heard and seen. You cannot fairly judge our HBCU programs because they're so different. You cannot judge our HBCU programs because at its inception, that's not what it's for. You cannot judge our HBCU programs, and I heard this one. I don't even know how this got brought up, but because I was never even talking about this, but you cannot judge our HBCU programs because we're not DCI. So before I get on all three of those, let me say this. Because this point was brought up to me on multiple occasions too, and I've seen it in a lot of different spaces. If you are willing to be ranked by a random group of people and we stand on that, then you being adjudicated shouldn't be an issue. Did I say the quiet part out loud? I'll say it again. If you are willing to be ranked by a random group, then you should not have a problem with being adjudicated. Let me explain why. And this goes to that first point of HBCUs are so different that they can't be judged, blah, 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 right? By what metrics are these random places judging you on? Hello? Like, let's just be very clear. We've seen multiple rankings of multiple bands in multiple places. So much so that we've also seen some of these band programs, and let me get this out of the way because I'll keep this up for a second. But so much so that a lot of these band programs have used the fact that they've been placed number one as a marker to use in their announcements as they're preparing for a field show. Rank number one and da 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 da. Rank number one and da 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 da. But what metrics did they use in order to substantiate you being ranked in these orders? Did they send you the metrics? Did they send you adjudication scores? Or are we more excited about the court of public opinion? That's what makes us awesome. That's where I have pushback. Right? Like, I can be this goes back to the fan thing. I can be a fan of you and I don't have to rank you. I don't have to publicly rank you, and you don't have to publicly accept that ranking. But so many times we've seen people publicly accept rankings for programs. Programs publicly accepted. They'll go and put it on their Facebook page, Instagram page, all of that. From random sources of people who, from what I've seen, have little to no band or music education background. But they ranked you number one. But then all of a sudden, when somebody says, yo, we about to do an adjudication process where there's going to be scores, oh, we can't do that, bro. We can't do that. Our bands are too different. Now, let me also say this, and I'm going to be very fair. There does have to be a right way and a wrong way to adjudicate. I will definitely say that. And I stand by that. I stand by it. I think, and I will say this out loud. I think and I told the people from Band of the Year the same thing. I think that the intentions of Band of the Year are noble. I question how it rolls out. Can HBCU bands be adjudicated even in their eclecticness? I don't know if eclecticness is a word, but we're going to roll with it. Yes. There is a right way to do it. Can bands, or excuse me, HBCU bands are not DCI? Well, we know that. We are well aware of that. What does that got to do with the price of tea in China? You know who else isn't DCI? High schools. And they go to festival every year. You know who else? You outside of going to festivals for high schools, you know what else? Y'all have I'll say we have high school band competitions every year. They're not DCI. So how is it all of a sudden, because it's HBCU bands, now we not DCI? We can't do that. Nope. If somebody says, y'all ain't won a Sudler Award, some of y'all don't even know what a Sudler Award is. But somebody says, we HBCU bands collectively have not won Sudler Awards. Collectively. Let me make sure I say that. Because somebody will say, well, that's not what we're talking about. I'm saying collectively, at the multiple numbers that we have of programs, HBCU bands haven't won one. Somebody will say, well, we ain't trying to be them white people anyway. What are we talking about? What? So, the last thing, HBCU bands at its inception were not created to be adjudicated. That's a fair argument. At its inception, it was not. That doesn't mean things can't change. That doesn't mean that growth isn't possible. I think the problem that we end up running into culturally, not just in band, but just culturally, is that we hold on to what we think are traditions. And they're not necessarily traditions, they're just things that we've done repetitively. That's it. Some things can be marked as a tradition, some things can be changed. I'll do you one. If you put a front ensemble in front of an HBCU band, what does that change culturally? I'm just asking. I'm not saying that you got to do it. I'm just saying, using that as an example. If you put a front ensemble in front of an HBCU band, what does that change culturally? It's something different. Just saying. That has nothing to do with changing traditions. It doesn't. It doesn't change any quote unquote traditions. So at its inception, was it meant to be adjudicated? No. Does that mean it's incapable? No. Absolutely not. So, is band of the year a good thing or no? I think at its core, it's meant to be a good thing. I still think that they have many cracks. Many cracks. I think that they ultimately mean well, but I think it's many cracks. Let's go ahead and before I get to this last topic, I'll read some of these. I think the disconnect is, what is the standard? What is the standard? I mean, that's an interesting question. Because when we look at, and I'll use this as an example, when we look at PWIs, right? Some would say there are 3 schools of thought when we start talking about PWIs and marching band. Obviously, you have military, but then you also have core style, or something that is relatable to what DCI does, right? And then you have like this Big Ten marching style, which is high knee lift, so on and so forth, more of a traditional marching style. So when you start looking at the Michigans and so on and so forth, right? So to ask the question, what is the standard? You know, I believe, and I asked this question, and I said this before on the LBR. I think the whole umbrella is traditional style marching band, right? I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the word show band, because in my opinion, any band that gets out there to entertain is a show. And I feel like when we say show band, that only limits us to saying that we're only there to shuck and jive. I don't like that. I would prefer to say traditional style marching band, because traditional style of marching is really a high knee lift. That was the original core style, for those of y'all who don't know. So traditional style marching band. If you want to say HBCU traditional style marching band, then fine. But I think the whole umbrella is that. And then under that, we have subcultures or subgenres. And I think that we can then start marking what those subgenres are, right? So like I said with PWIs have 3, in my opinion, 3 different versions of marching. You have, like I said, military, core style, and then like this Big Ten kind of like marching style. So I think that is what we look at as far as what we create our standard. The umbrella is traditional style marching band, but under that we have the subgenre. So, and I'm just gonna say it. I wouldn't label it as this, but you have your, I say downfield drill versus linear drills, you know, and whatever other subgenre there is. But that's what I think. That's my personal thing. That's the way I look at it. Now, I done said it out loud, which means that if I hear it somewhere else, y'all come to me and let's talk about it, because I know where it came from. Don't be stealing my stuff and then trying to make it seem like it's yours. With so many different styles, which I already read that. It's almost as if we shouldn't look to strangers for the culture for validation. We shouldn't look to strangers to the culture for validation. You don't need Sutler to tell you your band's performance was good or bad. To thine own self be true. So I think I get what you're saying. Listen, the point is that when we look at multiple different variations of places for our perception of our ranking, we look at personal people, we look at the court of public opinion, we look at these random rankings that come from anywhere, and we hold them to high pedestals, right? But the things that create true validation in the sense, now let me be very clear before y'all jump off the bridge, in the sense of what has been done through history and marked as true validation, where you get recognized nationally and you get trophies and so on and so forth, right? Those are the things that we shy away from. Why can't we do it all? Why do we have to stick in this one specific box, and we put that box in the corner and we say, that's our box. That's our box. Don't nobody touch our box. No, we can say, we can do this. We can appeal to our people, and our people love what we do. But we also can take what we do, and we can get everybody on board. We can get everybody to see what we do. We can do the same things. We can do what we do and also be able to still make an impact over here. That's all I'm saying. We don't gotta throw ourselves. We throw ourselves in the corner a lot of times, and then we like to keep ourselves in the corner, and then get mad because we're in the corner. Like that's what I'm saying. That's really where a group specifically does things. I've always wondered why HBCU bands don't have more soloists. No HBCU bands have. Well, I guess you're saying more soloists. I just think they need to sit down and come up with the blueprint of what it should be like. But I think that's the thing. I think they have. I just don't necessarily think that it's the best ideas. Standard, execute your style of marching performance and your material of music. We don't really need to judge styles, but good tone, quality, accurate notes. But see, that's my art. That's a bad way to look at things. That is such a bad way to look. The reason why it's a bad way to look at things is because anybody who's watching this on playback, me included, if my band director, God rest his soul, Ronald B. Thornton, was willing to put us in the field of judgment. In the state of Texas, it's called UIL. In other states, festival. If he was willing to put us through that field of judgment and be adjudicated and be scored, and then we go to the Battle of the Bands in the Astrodome and be adjudicated and be scored, and then go to the Battle of the Bands of Southern, and I'm naming all the battles that I did in high school, and be adjudicated and be scored, but then turn around and say, we don't really need to judge styles. Maybe I missed the question. I'm a C student sometimes. Maybe I just need to reread the question. We don't really need to judge styles, but good tone, quality, accurate notes, precise movements are universal things. Okay, then I agree with you. My bad. Because I was about to go off on the deep end. But I agree with you. Style itself should not be judged. Style itself should not be judged. If I'm a person, I marched in high school. We did downfield drills every year. till we were blue in the face. Most of them were Southern drills. And then I got to Norfolk, and I never did another downfield drill since. And I prefer a more linear, front-facing drill. That's me, right? If I go into the field of adjudication and I am judging a program, I am not judging them on the style in which they are performing. I am judging them on musicality. I am judging them on execution. I am judging them on all of the other intangibles that matter. Style doesn't matter. And I think we get hung up on that. Culturally, I think we get hung up on style. Well, if FAMU and JSU perform their style as best as they can flawlessly, how do you pick a winner? That's literally, that goes back to what I just said. Was your drill clean? Were your flags, if you have flags, were your flags used correctly? What does the spacing look like? What was the audience participation from your show? Did you step off at the right time? Is your marching style clean and correct? These are the things that I need to be judging. I don't need to be judging style or the style of drill. I don't need to judge that. I completely understand what you mean. We also have a stigma around those things that's unfair sometimes. We can give more platforms a chance to participate without letting them take control. All right. Last thing, and I got to get to this, and then this one really grind my gears. I'm going back up to what he said. That's why I said I wanted to keep it. As a director of bands, I've never been a supporter of this, blah, blah, blah. Marching band is not a sport. It is an academic entity and serves as an ensemble credit for instrumental music education majors. Listen, I have the utmost respect for Donovan Wells. For his 42 years of service, he is not, in my opinion, I have not seen a bad program or product from him yet. But I have pushed back on this. First of all, not every student, unless that's in your program, let me be very clear. Unless that's in your program, not every student is a music education major. And not every student takes marching band or bands in specifically as an ensemble credit. Now, again, if that is you and that's how you run your program, then that in your letter speaks to your program. And I, for one, can't say anything about that. But your comment speaks to the totality. Marching band is not a sport. It is an academic entity and serves as an ensemble credit. It can serve as an ensemble credit, but it is not totally an ensemble credit for everyone who participates. I'll give you an example. When I was an undergrad, we had many kids, and I'm just going to tell you because we had the availability to do that because they didn't have a band at the time. We had many kids who went to ODU who came over to Norfolk to march. Wasn't an ensemble credit. And they had the availability to do that. They were given that opportunity to do that. So, wanted to make that clear. Here we go. Is band a sport, though? It is debatable. For all the people in the comment section, and I saw it, and I read them. I read all my comments. It is debatable. It is. And the reason why it's debatable is because the powers that be that decided what a sport is did not include band as a sport, because historically, we only labeled sports as something that was actively done with a ball and had something to do with physical exertion, right? But if band is not a sport, then how is cheerleading a sport? Hello? And I want to make sure before I put my foot in my mouth. Yes, cheerleading is widely recognized as a sport, particularly in its competitive forms. So if band is not a sport, then how is cheerleading a sport? Please, someone tell me, for all the people who had something to say that said, I don't think that is a sport. So I'm going to take my years of getting my master's degree, and I'm going to do the thing that I was always told to do when you were challenged with something. I'm going to research. So let's research together. Let me pull this down. I got to make sure that people understand there are some things that can be by opinion, and then there are some things that prove themselves to be true. Let's read together. Definition of a sport. I spelled definition wrong, but we're going to keep going anyway. An activity involving physical exertion. Do you not have physical exertion? Hold on. Let me make sure. Exertion, physical or mental effort. So let's backtrack. I'm not even going to talk about everything that you have to do in preparation for a field show. I'm just going to talk about the field show itself. Now, I think they moved it down to about, 8 or 9 minutes? Physical effort, high knee lift, energy, heart rate up. Even if you're talking about core style, because real core style marching is hard, okay? And mental effort, meaning if I have to process my drill and my music and all at the same time, that is physical effort. Let's go back. And skill. It takes skill to do this. Can the skill be taught? Absolutely. Just like any sport in which an individual, one person, or team, full band, competes. Competes. Did I miss something? Let's look up the definition. Strive to gain or win something by defeating or establishing superiority over others who are trying to do the same thing. Do we not, A, during halftime, compete against the other band that is performing? Our idea is to create a superiority over the other band. Wait a minute, let me make sure. The state of being superior, being over someone. Is it not our thought process that when we go to halftime or when we go to showcases, that we are trying to be superior over another band? Yes or no? Is our idea that we want to defeat the other band? Wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm using the words correctly. Win a victory over someone in a battle, or other contest. Overcome or beat. I'm waiting to the point to where I'm off. Now, here's the kicker. Or team competes against another or others for entertainment. We swear up and down that what we do is for entertainment. We swear up and down that what we do is for entertainment. Tell me where I'm off. Tell me. I'm waiting. I read the comment sections and I don't mind having dialogue with folks. I love having dialogue. And there are times when I can be just completely wrong. And when I'm wrong, I don't mind you telling me. Bro, the definition is there. By definition, band is a sport, but it's debatable. And it's only debatable because the powers that be and people in places that have control over making them a legitimate sport don't do it. And then what we do is, and this is the funny thing about the world right now, we have solid definitions of something, but then we will bypass the solid definition that is given to us because in our brain, it doesn't compute what we feel about said thing. It's there in black and white. It's literally there. Is band a sport? Debatable. By definition, yes, it is a sport. You don't think it's a sport because historically, we have not made it a sport. Breakdancing is a sport. Cheerleading is a sport. I think I just saw in the comments, chess is a sport. But band, is it? How is that possible? How is that possible? So I wanted to make sure that we had that, we cleared that up. And I have this conversation with a good friend of mine, my frat brother. We've had this conversation over and over again. His argument is, and I'm going to help y'all out, but I'm going to tell y'all the same thing I told him. His argument is that in a sport, there is a declared winner. He says that in a sport, there is a declared winner. My argument to him is that in the adjudication process, there isn't a declared winner. If I go to a battle of the bands and we're actually scoring and judging, there's a declared winner. But then he follows with, but that declaration of the winner is only based on the opinions of the judges. That's true too. But how many games have we seen, football, basketball, and otherwise, where sometimes the scores were tampered with based on a judge's or a referee's call that was blatantly wrong? Just saying. It's a sport, bro. It's a sport. Let me get these last couple of comments. Just show them the DCI camp for real. They go crazy with the conditioning and mental physical. Yes. For those of you all out there who've only done HBCU or traditional style marching band, for those of you all who are out there, please let me be very clear. Drum corps is hard. It's hard. Don't think for a second that just because what we do has such a high level of physical exertion, that just because you see people that look like they're walking, they ain't walking. That is easy. It's not easy. There's a video out there of them doing a news report on asking the question, is DCI a sport? And they hooked this quint player up to like this heart monitor, and they measured his heart rate as they ran through the show. And I think they said that his heart rate got up to like 130. Was it 100? Was it 130, 140, something like that? It was very high beats per minute, just running the show. Them dudes leave dang near in soccer shape. That's true. In my 3 years doing DCI, man, I've seen kids come in. They come in and they got stomachs for days. By the time they leave, them boys is thin. I mean, thin. I saw one kid, man, one of my former trumpet kids when I was teaching DCI, man, he came in, he had a gut. By the end of the season, I could see his ribs. Literally, ribs. It's a sport. This just explains a lot of stuff BCU do, though. Playing the same music. Y'all gotta leave BCU alone with playing the same music. Listen. One thing I've noticed about Bethune, more often than not, in the stands, you're gonna get the same thing. They're not necessarily focused on the stands. They're focused on being clean. So they will sacrifice continuously learning new music over and over to be clean. They'll learn maybe one or two new stand songs or whatever, but the field show is really where you're going to get probably new music. And then they don't transfer a lot of that field show music to the stands. That's their formula. It's worked for them for years. You can't deny the cleanliness of Bethune. You can say whatever you want. They say they play the same thing over and over again. That may be true. And some people don't want to hear it. That may be true too. But what you can't deny is that they clean. You can't deny that. My cousin went to BCU in like 2003. He helped his son with the music who just graduated in 2019. Again, that's their formula. That's their formula, man. I mean, you can't deny the cleanliness of Bethune. I get you. I get what you're saying. But you can't deny it. You just can't. Exactly. That's the point. It's clean. You can't deny the cleanliness. If my focus is halftime, and during a rehearsal session, specifically during the summer, I'm cleaning traditional music. Now all I have to do is focus on halftime, which that's why their halftimes are cleaner than most. Because they have more time to focus on the thing they really, really focus on, which is halftime. And they don't have to focus on the stands, because it's already clean. They run through it maybe 2 or 3 times in the band room, make sure that all the parts are good. They got their little movements, and then they done. I mean, it is what it is. Outside of that, though, man, you guys keep the comments going inside the comment section. Don't forget, like, subscribe, do all the things, man. Also, don't forget, you can always hit the super chats, man. I appreciate every single one that you guys send out. Absolutely. Remember, man, you guys are able to send me anything that you guys hear, news reports, anything like that. You can send them to the Passionate Network Instagram. You can also send it to Real Talk That Talk. I would prefer you send them to the Passionate Network, but any news reports that you guys get or anything that's happening in the band world, you can absolutely send it to me and send it to us, and we'll make sure, or my people will make sure I get it, and then we can talk about it, man. But man, this has been great. Continue the conversation in the chat, man. Other than that, man, also like, subscribe, share this stuff out. And then I'll get with you guys. You guys stay tuned. LBR is going to continue to come out throughout the week. And don't forget that we do have another Talk That Talk coming up this Wednesday. Wednesday is already passed. So next week, Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday. Other than that, man, this has been great. And I'll holler at you guys later. Don't forget, band is a sport.